Welcome to Coleman Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman, and we're talking Main Street and the small business lenders who help it grow. Lance, good to see you. Chris, our weekly insight from the C-suite. Katie, as always, good to see you. We have a lot of news going on. We've heard what's going on. But first of all, let's talk about, there was an interesting article in credit unions and PPP loans, and we've talked about fintech lenders, but we haven't paid too much attention to how credit unions are doing. So let's go right off the bat with this poll question. Credit unions account for what percent of PPP loans?
Bob, I would take a guess, but I don't have a clue.
Yes, go ahead. What do you say?
I'm going to say 5 to 10%.
Chris, what's your guess?
I'm gonna go 11%. So the last one.
You're all wrong. Katie, what's the answer?
It was 2% of the PPP loans, and I don't know if anybody got hung up on this when I was first looking at the question. I actually thought it was what percentage of PPP participating lenders were credit unions, which might have thrown off that number a little, because that would have been about
we're going to give them an out? Okay, all right, fine. We'll give everyone an out.
Yeah.
No, but it's 2%, which is quite a bit. It's a large volume. And there's an interesting chart. Let's see, Greater Nevada, good for you. Mountain America, Self-Help, Navy Federal, Notre Dame. So there's a lot of good activity there, and there's some big numbers there. Greater Nevada, but I'm trying to do this on the fly here. Yeah, I mean, those are huge numbers. And credit unions like these other specialty lenders have found a niche, and they're doing very well. Chris, do you compete with the credit unions very much outside of PPP, or is they just carved out this nice little niche for themselves?
Not very often. It's pretty rare that we're competing on a deal with a credit union. But we know the Greater Nevada folks very well.
Right.
We purchased a lot of those loans.
Yeah, and Alaska, we don't. Yeah, I mean, we do business with half those people on that list. What's this nice colored map show us, Katie?
Yeah, so this is kind of just breaking it down. This is still looking at credit unions, of course, and PPP loans, but breaking down the certain regions and average loan size and number of jobs saved and things like that. If you look across the board, generally we're looking at close to or a little under that $50,000 average. There's a couple outliers there with the east, south, central area being a little bit lower and things like that. If you had paid attention to the previous slide, there were a few lenders on that list that were doing quite a bit of loans that are just over 100,000, but still it's mostly that 50,000 range or right around there.
Well, 2% may seem like a low number, but it's not really. I mean, the market is so dispersed. That's a significant inroad. I wish I knew right offhand what percentage of 7A loans lenders do. I don't have that. We'll talk about that some other time. Let's talk about forgiveness. What percentage of PPP loans over $1 million do you believe have been forgiven? Katie, when we first ran this, we were what, at 3%?
Yeah, and we're talking dollar amount here, so yeah, don't get too thrown off by that, because if you're looking at this by literal count, it'll be a little different. But
they got it right. It's 18%.
Yes, so it's 18% if you're looking at value of the loan, which is a decent way of looking at it, though there are, of course, you could break it out in a different way and look at just purely number of loans, and it is significantly smaller there. It's, I think, if I remember correctly, only about 2% there. But there weren't that many loans in that category, so hopefully that means they'll be working through those. It does look like a significant portion of those loans are getting forgiven, if not 100% of the value of the loan. So it does look like it's doing quite well in that area.
Lance, is SBA, I was going to ask you, Lance, is SBA cranking up those numbers? What's going on with SBA and their forgiveness process, do you think?
What I'm seeing, Bob, is the $1 million to $2 million. They're processing those pretty much like they are other size PPP loans. Those once submitted, It's a matter of a couple, 2 or 3 days, and they're approved. Still, the over 2 million has been kind of slow, but SBA's made a commitment to get started and to put some time parameters on getting the over 2s pushed through as well.
Is that the experience in your shop, Chris? You're seeing that ticking up?
Yeah, I mean, certainly of the up to $1 million, we didn't have, I think we only had about half dozen over $2 million loans. So I think we've got about a third of them, 3 of them approved, I think, at this point. But we were on a call earlier this week with SBA, and they had indicated that they pushed out a lot of the over 2 million loans just over the weekend.
Yeah, that's great news. That's great news. And then we'd like to obviously give the overall picture. What percentage of PPP loans under $100,000 have been forgiven? I'll give you a hint. It's over 50%.
Yep.
Katie, what's the answer?
The correct answer is 81%. So I think I would accept those people that are in the 70 and 88. They were awfully close. That's just a matter of a little bit of a bump over there. Yeah, and this is looking at by count, loan size, and things like that. And this is an SBA chart from the end of last month. They finally got their data out for the forgiveness portion of it. We had, of course, the data for the number of loans approved, but we're still waiting on some updated forgiveness data. So that's what this is. And just looking at this chart, it definitely is moving toward, I have to correct myself from earlier, it was 1%, not 2% of the loan count. But looking at the chart, we are seeing a significant number of loans getting forgiven. It looks like they're rocking and rolling with all of that stuff. It's just a matter of time before they get to all of these loans. And remember, they're still, in theory, processing loans till the end of this month. So they're really going to probably shift toward really focusing on forgiveness next month. And that will really speed things up.
Katie, let me ask this question first, Lance. Okay. Katie, are these numbers 2020 or 2021 numbers, or are they combined?
So this is going to primarily be 2020. The SBA hasn't been really releasing data too much on the 2021 forgiveness yet. There's only a few loans that probably have actually applied for forgiveness in 2021. But these are the loans that were approved in 2020 for the most part.
Go ahead, Lance.
Bob, I was just going to comment for the PPP lenders who were very active in round 2. Don't fret if you're not at 80% or anywhere close, because these are 2020 numbers. We haven't seen any 2021 forgiveness numbers yet.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But you are processing 2021 forgiveness numbers in your shop, right, Chris?
We are on a select basis. I mean, we're trying to clear out all the 2020s first, and I think that's what SBA wants us to do as well.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody sold their business, we'll certainly take a look at their 2021 forgiveness application, but we mostly want to really start next month in earnest.
Katie, a lot of volume.
Absolutely. And I think we're just going to see that pick up. Like I said, they're still processing the applications and handling that situation. But next month, really all they have to focus on is forgiveness at that point. So that's going to be a huge part of it. And of course, servicing as well. That we're supposed to get some servicing guidelines too. So hopefully we're going to be able to shift from the application period to the forgiveness period at that point.
Let's see. We have a couple. Thank you very much, Katie. We have a couple questions that came on the answer desk. We're still in the process of getting that over to Jennifer. Let me do these questions. Then I have some other general questions I want to ask Lance. We have a borrower who received a PPP loan before June of 2020, Lance, with a 2-year maturity. Can that borrower change it to 5 years?
By mutual consent of the borrower and the financial institution, yes, they could modify the loan to a 5-year loan. And I think you'll see quite a bit of that on the leftover balances. But yes, they can do that. You
do not need SBA's concurrence, correct?
That is as far as I know right now, Bob, a unilateral action. Although we do have servicing or purchase demand guidelines coming out pretty soon.
Well, I thought what would be good is let's do it. We advertise this, and I want to know for myself. Let's do a recap of where we are and what we're waiting for. We are waiting for servicing and guaranteed purchase process guidelines. Lance, I'm going to put you on the spot. When are we going to get those?
Well,
When do you think?
I don't know. I'll let Chris answer that one. Very soon,
Let's see,
guys.
Chris.
Probably
We're gonna go
probably within a month, right, Chris?
I believe a month is about the right timeline based on some senior SBA officials we've been talking.
July, which makes sense. And hopefully, yeah, I mean, that's,
Well, and some of the things that we're hearing about purchase demand, Bob, and this is what we've talked about over a period of time, and Chris, help me if I'm steering off the wrong path, but it's going to be a very simple process and most likely be done in the SBA portal. It's not going to require a lot of information from the participant bank. So, it's not going to be a difficult process to submit for guaranteed purchase.
are they going to change any of their procedures for loans less than 50,000 or 100,000, or are we stuck with these forms? Are they going to make it easier for us?
I don't think they're going to change much, if anything, at this point, Bob.
Okay.
I know there's been a lot of talk about it,
Right.
but I think some of the stuff that's going to come out in about a month, I think that's going to streamline a lot of things, and I just don't think the SBA has the appetite to continue tweaking some of the 3508 forms that we already have out. I think they just want to try and get this behind them, just like the lending community does, obviously.
Yeah. So are you suggesting that they're going to come out and with, hey, this is what we need in terms of who holds what documentation, what the lender needs to do, and yeah, how you go about this? Is that what you're suggesting, Chris?
Yeah. I think we're going to have a lot of the answers people are looking for in about a month's time.
Yeah.
Based on guarantee purchases, and what do you do when a borrower's going into bankruptcy post receiving their PPP loan? And
That's my next question. That's my next question. What happens when we go for bankruptcy? What do we do?
We're gonna know in about a month.
Oh, we don't know. Okay, today they filed for, they're in bankruptcy. What do we do right now, Lance?
Well, you're going to want to submit a proof of claim.
Right.
And I would start developing a list so you're ready, but you'll want to go ahead and submit a proof of claim. Don't get involved in a tremendous amount of expense, but get the proof of claim filed.
And that is on the lender's dime. SBA is not going to reimburse you for any of that work, I assume?
Not at this point, I don't think so.
Not at this point. What happens if the lender doesn't do that? They just said, they filed bankruptcy and we're just going to let it ride.
That's a tough question.
Let me guess, 30 days, you're going to say.
I'm going to think that SBA is still going to honor the guarantee, but I think in best practices is go ahead and file the proof of claim and sit back and wait a few weeks for the guidance on purchase demand. Basically, I think you're going to file proof of claim and then file for guaranteed purchase.
My question is, so as of June 15th, 2021, we are still operating under the guidance that these are 7A loans. However, we've heard rumblings and whatever, but they're not really 7A loans and they can be treated a little bit differently. Are they going to put that in formal guidance, Lance?
I don't know about, I know we're going to see guaranteed purchase information soon. From servicing, and Chris, help me if I'm wrong, I still think the 50-57-2 and the unilateral matrix will manage and be the guidelines for any servicing done over leftover balances. Now, I know SBA's desire is for their, and all the lending institutions, the desire is to have a minimum number of leftover balances.
Right.
Yeah. And a minimum, but SBA has also gone on record. They said, hey, we understand we don't expect a lot of work from the lenders, but we need a minimal amount just to move the process along. So on that hand, they're telling us, well, these are a little bit different than traditional 7A where you need to follow these rules. Here, they're just saying, give us the minimum. We don't expect a lot of expense. They've gone on record on that. and let's get them through the system. So
Yeah, it's like bankruptcy. You're probably not going to go, like I said, file your proof of claim, get a list going, and be prepared for guaranteed purchase.
but you're not going to retain
money.
counsel. You're not going to retain counsel to represent you, are you?
In most cases, unless you need it to file the proof of claim, I'd say no.
Okay. Finally, let's talk about fraud. Overall, my impression is, and I want you guys to correct me if I'm wrong, my impression is fraud was prevalent in 1.0, I'll call it. As a percentage, Katie has shown the numbers after numbers. Yeah, it's out there, but it was within numbers, within the standard deviation or whatever. PPP 2.0 seems to be minimal types of fraud. Is SBA addressing that, Lance? Any more guidance for lenders, or just what observations have you picked up?
Well, I think fraud, and Chris knows, of course, in the first round, there were bigger cases that were flashier. In this round, most of it's going to be smaller. Certainly, you're going to want to address it, but the most important thing you can do when fraud's brought up is to send the information to the Inspector General. That's the important first step.
Yeah, and I assume they're going to be reviewing that, Chris. They're going to want to see if you suspect fraud, what your procedures are, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. But I think I think it's a critical distinction, this last round of PPP versus in 2020, the two rounds. I think there's probably a fair amount of fraud, but it's on smaller loans, not necessarily on the biggest loans. I think SBA did a great job, despite a little bit of teeth gnashing in the lending community on all those air codes, all the validations they did. But I think that did prevent a lot of the larger fraud.
Well, and I think, and hats off to the lenders for minimizing that, because the lenders then had the blueprint to follow. Say, hey, check this, there's a hold code. Oh, maybe we should check into that. And I know a lot of the hold codes were bogus, but I'm sure every now and then some are legitimate in terms of stopping fraud, which is good.
Sure.
Anything else on PPP, Lance, that I missed, that just sort of an overview of what lenders should worry about for the next 30 days?
Well, you had some really insightful questions, Bob, and Chris and I both know that we're going to see more information over the next 30 days that will help us. We will know probably sometime middle June, latter June, or I'm sorry, July, exactly what the steps will be. But I would just encourage people, bankruptcies, fraud, different things, do that logical first step, report fraud to SBA's Inspector General on a bankruptcy, file a proof of claim, but don't get much deeper than that at this point, because I don't want you to spend money that you don't necessarily have to spend.
But should we, if we have an obvious case where I drive by and the place is closed and boarded up and for lease signs, it's obviously they're not operating anymore. Do I start assembling the PDK now? Do I wait for my final guidance? Do I just memo the file? What do I do?
This was released by SBA a while back, so I feel comfortable. On purchase demand, 60 days past due is purchase demand. If you have a closed business, it's time for purchase demand.
So do it.
Chapter 7 bankruptcies, purchase demand. If there's a felony indictment on anyone involved in the loan, purchase demand. So those are absolutes. You'll move to purchase demand. So if you have a closed business you're aware of, you're just going to have that PPP loan ready. Because a closed business obviously does not have to hit the 60-day past due mark. There'll be probably a checkbox for you.
Right, very good. Lance, is there any telegraphing of we do a normal PDK, or can we take some shortcuts with PPP loans?
Do not start doing the 10 tab on these PPP loans. First of all, you'd have a ton of tabs that said NA, right, Chris? So don't start the 10 tab system. White SBA is going to have a simple process for us to do the purchase.
I think so. Great. You think so?
I'm pretty sure they will. Wouldn't you say, Chris?
I would say so, yes. Yes.
Great. Real quick, Katie, looks like we're out of time, but what is, there was a hearing, I know you follow those very closely. Why do we have a decline in women entrepreneurship? What's going on there?
So there's of course, the House has been really focused on having hearings about reaching out to minority groups, to women-owned businesses, to things like that, to really ensure that they have the funding they need and things like that. And looking at women in entrepreneurial situations, you've got women making up about half the workforce, which is about 42% of U.S. businesses. And before the pandemic, they employed 9.4 million workers, generated $1.9 trillion in revenue. This was a really strong, significant portion of the economy. And the concern here is that about 37% of small businesses closed their doors due to the pandemic as of last May. With a very strong portion of that being women-owned businesses, which is only natural if it's about half of the businesses. But that is a huge concern because as they start coming out of the pandemic, as we start trying to build back and come back to a normal situation, you're going to need those businesses as well. So they're really looking at trying to boost those businesses. And there's a nice quote here saying that basically strong recovery from this crisis will depend on having female entrepreneurs. And I'm sure they're also looking at other groups as well that were really hard hit. So they didn't have any plans necessarily as to how they were going to handle this, but that is something that I'm sure the SBA is going to be looking at. We've got some quotes from the SBA administrator recently saying that this is going to be a continued focus going forward for the SBA as well.
I guess my question is there something systemic in terms of why women businesses are failing at a higher rate, or is it the type of industry they're in, i.e. not, beauty salons, nail salons, restaurants?
Right. I think you've hit that one on the head. I think it's probably the types of businesses that female entrepreneurs go into did get hit especially hard during the pandemic. Those places, some of our hair salons still are not fully open, so it's still hitting those businesses hard. So I think that's probably a big portion of it.
Yeah, obviously I didn't want to classify that all female entrepreneurs are in those three niches, but that maybe that was them. Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much for your time. I know you're very busy. Lance, I'm going to see you Thursday morning.
That's correct, Bob. I look
forward. What are we going
forward
to do, Lance? What are we?
We're going to update the SBA loan closer training, and it's time for it. I'm excited to get it done, Bob, and to make it available to SBA lenders.
Thank you very much, Katie. We'll see you all tomorrow. And thanks for joining us today for Coleman Report Live and for supporting America's women entrepreneurs, or Women's Main Street, or whatever, one woman entrepreneur at a time.
Thank you.
Thank you.